Hello, everyone, and welcome back to another awesome episode of Shut Up and Enjoy, the podcast here where the only requirement is for you to shut up and enjoy the stuff we talk about. I am one of your blah, blah, blah. I am not able to speak properly today. I am one of your co-hosts, Jedi Master Chris, joined here by my wonderful, wonderful other co-host, Jedi Master Dante. And this week is all about the Loki Season 2 finale.
Ooh.
And what in the multiverse did we get? Like, I knew this was going to be a holy crap episode, but this had a lot packed into it. There was a lot of character development in it. There was a lot, like, I didn't really necessarily know how they were going to end it.
Yeah, it was tough to try and predict.
Also, spoiler alert.
Yeah. Oh yes. Good call. But it was tough to try and predict what we would see. But again, we are always looking to be entertained. We're always looking to enjoy it, and I think we were very much entertained by this episode, and we enjoyed it a lot. Spoiler for that as well. You don't have to. We're not going to bury the lead on that. We loved it.
Yes,
we loved it.
Both of us did. It definitely put episode 5 in a little more context for me.
Yes. See, we talked about that.
I know if you recall, I wasn't overly thrilled with episode 5, but especially that last part, and especially with the character of Mobius, seeing him go back. It's like, no, a couple more minutes. That gave me the context, whereas if they didn't have that development in character in episode 5 and it was just him watching a variant of himself, I don't think that scene would have landed as hard as it did.
Right. Got you a little bit emotional, right?
Yeah.
Just a little bit.
The way this episode opened, I mean, everything kind of blew up, literally.
Yeah.
And Loki just gained control of his time slipping.
Right.
At the end of episode 5.
Right.
So this one is just it's one of those episodes that is you're reliving the same 10 minutes over and over and over and over and over and over and over again.
Groundhog Day type situation.
A lot of those episodes I find get really boring. Like there's one episode of Stargate that did that, and it felt like nails on my skin, just like it was hard to watch. But I think they did a really good job with this, because it wasn't just the same exact moment. It was, let me go back to 2:00 and try this. Let me go back to 1:00 and try this. But it was 1:00 from a different part of the TVA. And it was kind of the what if of like, well, what if he went here? What if he went there? And what if he went there? And I thought that was very, very well done, and kind of a new, refreshing take on that whole type of episode.
It was good to see that they showed us how he learned each and every time. So it went from, hey, I need to do this faster to, oh, no, wait, I need to do this earlier. So the difference in the semantics and the difference in the way you think about things. You don't have to do it faster. You just have to do it earlier. So it's good to see.
You watched the training montage in real time.
Yes.
From the first person of the character versus another movie we're going to talk about later, where the training montage was your typical, like, everyone's going at it and now we can control our powers.
Right.
So I think that was really key, that the story was 100% told from Loki's perspective, and it was never us watching Loki. It was always from behind his eyes, essentially.
Yes, it was always his focus.
Yes. So what do you think? I kind of word vomited my thoughts as I'm stuttering right now. What were your thoughts going in and overall?
Overall, I mean, again, without bearing the lead, we're going to go with what's our ratings for this week? Are we going to Infinity Stones? Because it's 6. If we're
How
going
many
rounds, it's
how
9.
many trees of life, spoiler alert, would you give this one?
All of them. Is
And
there only one?
and we're talking full bloom trees of life, not autumn
Full
time where
bloom.
everything's dying.
We're, we're talking Pandora, Avatar Pandora trees. We're all over the place with trees on this one. But one thing I just noticed that we kind of skipped. We didn't read the recap for everyone.
Ah, yes.
So let's get in there. Loki season 2, episode 6, Glorious Purpose. Now, if we remember, the very first episode, the pilot episode, season 1, episode 1, was also called Glorious Purpose. So we kind of got the whole, again, the Ouroboros, the snake eating his tail. We've come full circle,
Yep.
even with that title. But let's get into it. Loki time slips to the moment before the temporal loom's explosion. Despite his attempts, the loom always fails to accommodate the infinite branches. Loki slips to the moment before Sylvie kills He Who Remains, who tells Loki that the loom is a failsafe. Overloading it protects the sacred timeline by deleting the branches along with the TVA. He Who Remains suggests Loki kills Sylvie to save the loom, which Loki rejects. After consulting Mobius and Sylvie at different moments in time, Loki replaces Timely in approaching the loom. Loki destroys the loom, magically revives the dying timelines, and rearranges them into a tree-like structure, committing himself to oversee the branches alone at the end of time. The TVA accepts the growing branches and now tracks He Who Remains' variants, with Mobius reporting one variant being stopped at Earth 616, adjacent realm. Hmm? B-15 becomes one of the TVA's leaders. Ouroboros reactivates a now friendly Miss Minutes and writes a new TVA handbook with Timely as co-author. In one timeline, Timely does not receive the TVA handbook in 1863. Renslayer awakens in the void and sees Elias. Mobius retires from the TVA as he meets up with Sylvie to observe Don and his children on the sacred timeline. After Sylvie departs, Mobius stands and waits as Loki watches over. There it is.
I love the line of, are we 100% sure she's not going to try to kill us?
Fingers crossed.
I mean, that's kind of how IT works. Are we 100% sure this isn't going to break the network?
We'll see. We'll press the button. Sometimes it gets a little sticky, but we'll keep pressing it.
So 2012 Loki,
Mhm.
Avengers.
Battle of New York.
Battle of New York, Thor 1, the Destroyer, the hunt for power to a peaceful ending. Almost the villain has gone from villain to gray to anti-hero to hero. Is this one of the best character arcs in the MCU and one of the most detailed and intricate?
Without a doubt. Without a doubt. Because of exactly what you just said. When we first met him, he was just being selfish. He just wanted everything for himself. He wanted the throne. He wanted to take over Earth for whatever reason. I don't know why anybody would want to, but that was
Because
the whole reason why he came down. It's the whole reason why he came down. He just wanted to take over and to hell with everybody else. This is what I want to do. And then we see at the end, because of him, those timelines don't get pruned, the branches don't get taken away, millions upon billions of people don't die, and he's able to keep it all, grasp it all, and give it power, give it life, essentially. Because we saw when he initially grabbed the timelines, gave it a little bit of power. You can see it powering up, but when he let it go, it died again, and that's when he knew, like, okay, so it's all me. I'm the battery. I'm the one that has to bring all this together to keep it all together, and then I'll be there to watch over it in time. So essentially, he became what He Who Remains told him he would be, or asked him to be, at the end of season one, before Sylvie went all stabby stabby.
It was almost a self-fulfilling prophecy at that point.
Yep.
As much as he tried to fight it, the more he fought it, the faster he was running into it.
Yes, 100%.
And that's one thing, one point that you brought up of now we have all of these different timelines. It's no longer the sacred timeline. One thing that Marvel has been doing that from a zoomed out perspective that I'd love to get your thoughts on with this.
Okay.
Is how many different ways are we going to break into the multiverse? We saw it at the end of Loki season 1, killed He Who Remains, and we saw it with end of season 2. He's now holding all of the timelines and running them through him. We saw it in Spider-Man Homecoming. We saw this cracks above New York where we saw Rhino and we saw this and that. And we saw Scarlet Doctor Who, Christ. We saw Doctor Strange in the Multiverse of Madness passing between with America Chavez. Like, we get that the multiverse is here. What I'm wondering why we haven't seen is why haven't we seen one break in the multiverse? And that's the one almost keystone that is referenced. So, like, okay, Doctor Strange in 616 broke down the barriers between the multiverse. The TVA, and then chronologically, the TVA was reformed after he did that, which is why it's still broken. And America Chavez broke down the barrier, created incursion. Like, it all seems like just how many different ways can we crack an egg? On the counter, on the bowl, on our head, on a pan, on a stick, on a like do you see what I'm kind of getting at?
I do. And I think there isn't one specific event yet that we can point to as, okay, this is the breaking point. Because while you mentioned all those projects, there was also What If that also hit into,
where they're literally fighting, and every time Ultron punches the Watcher, it's a desert, an ocean, a city. Like
yes. So there are a lot of different ways that there are, well, I don't want to say incursions, but there are ways that touching the multiverse, which is even what one of the Kang variants said at the end of Quantumania. They're touching the multiverse. Touching. So I think all these projects that we're seeing is us, the viewer, or us, the overarching projects, the MCU.
We are the Watchers.
We are the Watchers.
Can you imagine if they pulled that shit and they did some fourth wall break where it's like, all of us are the Watchers and we can't interfere, we can only witness? Can you imagine that?
It would be awesome.
Can you imagine the ape shit that the fandom would have? It's like, holy shit, they just brought everyone into the MCU.
And it would be amazing and wonderful and great.
And I'm here for it. Give me my damn shield badge.
1,000%. 1,000%. So looking at what we have for the multiverse, looking at all these projects, and the only thing we can keep referencing, and I hate to do it, but it's coming, and I think we know it's coming. And once we get into talking about that other project that also came out on Thursday night,
I mean, we can say it's the Marvels.
It's the Marvels.
People know the Marvels came out. We're not talking about the Marvels right now, but we can say it's the Marvels.
Yes, yes. And there was something that happened in there that also talked about the multiverse and universes and things like that, and other things that are probably going to be happening. And so once we get to that, so that's a tease. You got to come back for the next episode to hear all about it. But yeah, so looking forward to seeing where this will go now that Loki is the god of stories. I guess
Yeah.
is what we're calling him now, so that he has control of those branches. He has control of essentially the multiverse. He has control of it. So where do we go from here? And will there be a season three, or will Loki just be the overarching uh, narrator of the future of these stories that are coming?
So one thing I did have a conversation about with one of my as I say dot comrades, my internet
Okay.
friends.
I like it. I like
Right,
it.
right. I stole that from the Tony and Ryan podcast. Everyone stay tuned, not sponsored, but hi guys. Um that is the writers were saying that an original one story idea to conclude Loki was that he and Thor would have one final reunion.
Okay.
My immediate rebuttal to that was, well, did they say Tom Hiddleston's Loki? And we don't, and the way Tom Hiddleston has been talking about in interviews is that his time as the character is coming to an end. Honestly, I would be fine if this closed up Tom Hiddleston's arc as the Loki we know. If he came back as like President Loki, sure. But this Loki, this is a great ending to him. We do not need to keep adding on to his character arc. This was a beautiful ending. Like, in fact, please don't. But the one thing that I saw about like maybe the Thor reuniting, and I don't know what's going on with Chris Hemsworth because he was diagnosed or came out this year and said he was diagnosed with some type of like Alzheimer's or something.
Really?
He came out and said there was he was diagnosed with something. Hemsworth.
That's news to me. I hadn't heard of that. I always get a little. I always chuckle a little bit when actors and actresses talk about how uh, they're done, quote unquote, with the character, or done with Marvel, or done with those type of
Yeah, and
movies.
Xavier and Patrick Stewart and Hugh Jackman said at the end of Logan, "I'm done. This is the way I want it to go." But
Right,
I,
right.
uh,
And coming off of 118 days of strike, I think a
mhm.
lot of actors and actresses are, pretty much looking for, stuff to do. So they ain't really turning things down these days. You know what I mean? So
So
I
yeah,
always take that with a grain of salt.
yeah, what I'm seeing here from Vanity Fair, quick Google, is that I guess he has two copies of the APOE4 gene, which is an increase risk of Alzheimer's. One in
Okay.
four people carry a single copy, but only 2 to 3% have both, according to a 2021 study by NIH. Not that we know anything about them. And it's quote, not a hard diagnosis of Alzheimer's, but it is a cause for concern.
Gotcha. Okay.
So that I wonder if he's really going to be doing too much more acting, or if that's something that he wants to come back and do type of thing. But the other thing, going back to like an end of Thor, like if they do that, is it going to be Chris Hemsworth's Thor from 616 who lost his Loki? And then we see the Young Avengers Kid Loki who murdered Thor come back, and you get that redemption of, I'm sorry, I didn't want to, I regret it. And so it's like I got both people got back what they lost. Our
Mhm.
Thor's Loki was killed by Thanos. Kid Loki Kid Loki's Thor was killed by him. So you almost get those two strings that then both get final closures.
It would be interesting, just thinking about that for a second. So not only so we talked a little bit ago earlier about actors and actresses and what they say.
Yeah.
Then you have directors and producers and networks and what they say, what
And
they
then you
want.
have blank checks and what they say.
Right. Then then you have content creators and like you said, Vanity Fair, the outlets that say what they want to see. Everybody wants to see instead of just letting it play out. Now, I don't even really understand or know what it means to have a reunion of Loki and Thor. Now that we're into the multiverse and clearly Loki can time travel and jump from place to place.
But if he
What
leaves now, then he's literally holding on to the branches of reality. If he leaves, then
well, is that really true though? Because kind of like we talked about before, he's able to jump into his place at any time on at any time he exists. So he would be able to jump from here to before Thanos killed him. By the same token, he should be able to jump back to where he is
before he left.
before he left, and he's still holding on to the branches. But I guess that doesn't make sense because he's the variant of the one that was killed by Thanos. So where does it go?
Wibbly wobbly, timey wimey. Yeah. Um, where do you think we're gonna see B-15 again in the TVA and Timely and
Yes. And the reason why I say that is because they made a concerted effort to go back to the TVA to show where the TVA is right now. I mean, again, we're talking about timeline stuff, so it's right now, in the past, the future, present, who
it's the
knows?
new woke TVA. I don't like the new woke TVA.
Yeah, yeah, man,
All timelines are welcome.
it's
Got rid of
bullshit.
that. We're gonna get canceled for that. I'm sorry, guys. I
But
mean, I'm not, but I'm sorry, but I'm not.
so we noticed that in the folder they had, they said, hey, there was a variant in Earth 616 adjacent realm, which is the quantum realm. Spoiler alert if you didn't know, it's the quantum realm. And it had pictures of some of the scenes from Ant-Man and the Wasp Quantumania. So clearly, they are if they are hunting down the Kang or He Who Remains variants,
Mm-hmm.
then it just stands to reason that at any point that those variants show up, the TVA should be involved somehow.
I just had a like bit of imagery in my mind where it's the Captain America in Endgame, where he's taking the last stand, he's tightening the shield
Uh-huh.
and everything to stand against Kang, and then you get to like on your left,
Thanos.
and you just see all of the TVA doors open up
Oh,
and all of the armies walk through. Young Avengers, West Coast Avengers, X-Men, Scarlet Witch, the TVA agents, everyone is walking through all of these doors about ready to just absolutely fuck Nathaniel Richards as the actual Kang the Conqueror's just curb stomp him into last year.
so you have no imagination. Is that what you're saying? It just
None at all.
that would be interesting.
Right? Yeah, like Tom Cruise's Iron Man with Robert Downey Jr.'s Iron Man and then Rescue as well.
Yeah, the rescue armor. Yeah.
Yep, that'd be fun. That'd be fun. Uh yeah, it's I'm this season finale was probably one of my favorite season finales, if not my favorite from all of the TV shows, between um WandaVision, between Falcon and the Winter Soldier, between the other ones.
The other ones. WandaVision, Falcon and
Oh
Winter
yeah,
Soldier. Hmm?
Hawkeye was a thing.
Yes, Hawkeye was a thing. Um,
And didn't we just see Kate Bishop too?
we did, but we'll talk about that.
Yeah.
We'll talk about that later.
I just had that flood. I'm like, wait a minute, was I hallucinating that? No, I was just exhausted.
Yeah, yeah, it happened, and I got to tell you, my son was extremely. He was happy about that. But again, we'll talk about that
Yeah,
another
yeah,
time.
yeah, yeah, yeah.
um, but I think I'm not sure how many series we've had, but this was definitely if we look at this as a full series. Let's just say that this 12th episode, this
Mm-hmm.
two episode six, is the end of the Loki experience as we know it. Then we can definitely say that this was a super strong
Mm-hmm.
piece of television.
As I said, I almost don't want them to continue with this because this was such a beautiful, emotional, artistic end to this character. It would almost be a shame if they tried to come up with some cop out time travel thing that then made it so this character couldn't be laid to rest. And it's one of those, stop doing it while you enjoy it and while you're going to be missed versus overstaying your welcome.
Right, right. And they did have some open parts to it as far as what happened with Renslayer in the Void, because they
Bring
definitely
in Renslayer. You don't need Hiddleston's Loki for that.
you don't need Loki for that, right? Or do you? Because you know
Well,
how
what I was
you
half
know how,
expecting was you were going to see Kid Loki show up and look at Renslayer instead of Eliath. You were going to have all of those variant Lokis and Croaky and all that stuff.
what they made sure to show was her looking over at the pyramid.
Mm-hmm.
So I think that kind of sort of gives us a little inkling as to um, what's going to be coming down the future, because we know that there is a Loki variant. I'm sorry, a Kang variant
Yeah,
that
Pharaoh King.
that was around in that time. So um,
And then,
it's gonna be interesting. Obviously, we know that she and He Who Remains tamed Goliath to help win the war.
yeah.
So will she also do the same for this other Tennessee?
And what was also interesting was the parallel between the TVA seal that Loki walked or that Mobius walked out on,
Yep.
that you saw kind of covered in dirt and everything, seeing the for all time, always.
Yes. Yes.
I thought that was well done. Well,
Very, very well done. Very well done.
well done.
Yeah. So they do have those open strings, those open threads. So
Mhm.
it's it'll be interesting to see where it goes. It'll be interesting to see where all of it goes and how this ties in. But again, what I like to see is that if we're looking at this series as in a bubble, in a vacuum, um, did we really need to see any other MCU project to get the gist of
The
what's going on?
series as a whole or this season?
The series as a whole.
I would say Avengers 1 and the Battle of New York. but that would be it.
Exactly. And that I think is another thing that makes this series so great. So you
Fine.
don't have to rely.
Well, here's your starting point into the MCU. You want a starting point? Fine. Avengers 1 and then here.
Mm-hmm.
Now you can go back and see what's happening in all of these different timelines as you want. So here's the post Infinity Saga convenient entry point into the universe.
Right. Which if we go back to 2019, I mean, we're not time slipping. We don't have any temp pads or anything. I have a watch, but it's
I have
not
a
a temp
Garmin
pad.
Phoenix.
It doesn't do anything. But if we go back to 2019, that was the original intent of Marvel. This was supposed to come out first before WandaVision and and everything else. So things got a little screwed up and flipped and bounced and went awry. Um, but the intent was there. And I think
Do you
they
think everything
kept,
else suffered as a result?
say that again.
Do you think everything else suffered as a result
I think as a result of this not being the first
of
thing to come out.
season 1 not being the first breaking into the multiverse?
No, no, I don't. I think outside forces kind of screwed up a lot. Um, and again, I hate to talk about behind the scenes and all that
Yeah.
other stuff, but clearly COVID messed up some things, and scripts had to be changed and rewritten. Even from what I understand, episode 5 of this needed to be changed, like fully rewritten over a weekend. Um, do we know what that episode 5 was going to be previously? The episode 5 that we got was enjoyable. I know you had your your concerns, we'll call it that, with it, that were alleviated once we saw episode 6. But you kind of wonder, okay, well, what was the episode going to be? Same with Falcon and the Winter Soldier. We know that that also went through some rewrites and some reshoots and things like that. So what would that have been had things been a little bit different? And I think you can say that for a lot of the projects that came out post the Infinity Saga, when 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 the world was just in flux, and Disney Plus was just starting off, and
Yeah.
they were trying to put out a lot of projects and things like that. So it's always interesting. One thing that we talked about before is that season 2 of What If is coming, right?
Yes.
Now, I remember when season 1 came out, and they always said, hey, I think it was supposed to be 10 episodes, but they only ended up with 9 because the plan was they were going to take one of the episodes from season 1 and just put it in season 2. Well, I understand that that's more or less an anthology type
Yeah.
um, series, but still, how do you just do that? How do you just take an episode and just okay, we're not going to show it now, we'll show it later? Does that episode have a bearing on what all came before it, or is it going to have a bearing on what comes after it? How is all that going to work? But either way, I'm just going to shut up and enjoy it. So
Well,
it doesn't really
absolutely. Absolutely.
matter.
Now, we're going back to if this one came out first and this was the first MCU show,
Mm-hmm.
I think then the end of season 1 would have been the exposition of the multiverse splitting. Because so that broke down the walls, which is why Strange could cast the spell, which is why it was easier for Wanda to do that, which is why Multiverse of Madness could happen. So that would have been for whatever my opinion has, for whatever weight my opinion has, a good catalyst for starting to break down the walls. And it's easier to universe hop if the universe branches are like this, it's easier to go from like here to here versus here to here.
Yep. Yep.
Because you have your different nexus points.
Mm-hmm.
So I think that did hurt the development of the multiverse saga.
That's true. That's true. And who
But it's
knows
also
what?
all time travel, so we can just go back and watch it the right way.
Ooh. And that, so again, it's could have been, should have been, would have been. We got what we got, and so again, if we look at it in a bubble of each program by itself, and then go back and then put it all together for the entire MCU and what have you, then we are, because we're not dumb people, we are able to figure it out and see what the
Yeah.
intent was, what the purpose was, and enjoy it in that way. Because I think another thing that we kind of sort of we gloss over, we don't put it all together. Even movies like Shang-Chi, it wasn't a multiverse, but there was some sort of another dimension that also was a product in that film. So there was a lot going on.
What the hell is Tiamat's hand and skull doing in the South Pacific? Can we get a mention of that?
Uh, I,
Please.
I always push back on that because it's the world. So you remember, I guess it was a couple of years ago when they found that new tribe in the Amazon that had never been seen before, and they were out there with their little sticks and they were throwing it at the plane and all that stuff.
Are you talking in real world and
I'm talking real world.
the Watchers universe?
No, I'm talking real world.
Yeah,
This actually happened
yeah.
a couple of years ago. So that's not something that we talk about at all anymore, right? No one mentions that anymore. A couple of years ago, there was some weird obelisk found on the beach somewhere. Nobody talks about that. Don't want to get political, but there's also a war going on that's been going on for almost 2 years now, and nobody talks about that. Well, they're talking about it now because it's
But we
election time.
don't have, yeah, it's election time.
Yeah,
But whereas in the context of this, it's like that would have been a world-ending event. That would have categorically been an Avengers level threat.
right. That was taken care of. So now it's nothing. Now it's just something sticking up out of the ocean.
You're telling me Fury and Saber don't know where the Eternals are and haven't made contact with them? At least show me a data pad that has like that's scrolling through where you see their faces of like they're keeping tabs on them. I'd be fine with that if it was just a
Well,
little
well,
Easter egg on that.
well, they're gone.
Not all of them.
Yes, all of them.
Didn't some stay?
No, they were taken at the end. So someone to look for shit. I can't remember what they wanted to look for because remember
They found
uh,
out they were all robots.
yes. And then there was 3 or 4 of them on the ship. That one
Cersei's were they going to look for Cersei after Arishem took her and Sprite?
No, Arishem took them at the end. They were already on the ship because remember in the post-credit scene. Oh, I'm sorry, that's what it was. They were going to look for them then. So so
Because
they're
that's they were going to look for Cersei after what was it who's his face rebuilt rebuilt the Domo.
Yeah.
And
So
then
they're all
that's
gone.
when Harry Styles and Patton Oswalt showed up being like, you want to know where they are? I
I
got
can
you.
take. Yeah. So they're all gone. So I get what you're saying. It does make sense that somebody should know something. But again, at the same time, we also aren't with them. We aren't with Fury. We aren't with Sword, Saber. Um, we just aren't with them all the time. So maybe some shit is happening. And I don't worry about that too much.
I'm not losing sleep over it,
Right.
but it like them, and I mean even Shang-Chi, it's a very good self-contained movie, but at the end you had the Mark Ruffalo line of "Welcome to the circus." Like
Right.
that brought Shang-Chi into the circus. Right now, the Eternals is still not in the circus. And I'm
Who's
wondering when
mentioned
their act is going to join.
who's mentioned Shang-Chi since that film? Keeping in mind again that took place in San Francisco where Scott Lang is.
Yeah. No one's mentioned it, but because we saw that direct conversation with Danvers and Banner and Wong, it was just the little branch on it. Like it was that little olive branch that was extended to bring them in. There hasn't been anything like that with the Eternals.
Aside from the little scroll on the bottom of the screen, and was it She-Hulk? I think
For which one?
it was a little scroll at the bottom of the screen that says giant stone sticking out of the ocean or something. It was in one of the
Oh yeah, that's right.
projects. Yeah, that was the only thing. Then it also had man fights with Metal Claw in a bar or something.
I
So
did, yeah.
yeah,
Maybe there is stuff. Maybe I
yeah,
should just shut up and enjoy more.
exactly. So again, it's all the same thing. Listen, the battle of New York was didn't it cause like billions and billions of dollars of damage? That would be something that I mean,
We can do a whole podcast episode on how money works in the MCU because nobody has that amount of money. How many helicarriers did Fury have in the Winter Soldier?
he had a fleet of them.
A fleet of them, yes. Like,
Oh man.
yeah, yeah.
But yeah,
Uh,
so that's for future podcasts. We'll talk about all that stuff.
oh yes.
But if we take it back to Loki here for a sec, just how this season 2 episode 6 ended, how the series ended, perhaps. Um, very, very, very well done. And I think we should take just a step back for a sec and give kudos to Marvel for putting out such a fantastic series. Marvel gets a ton of shit for their so-called uh, core projects over the last 2-3 years. That when they put out something as great as this, I think they should be commended for that as well.
They should. We give them a lot of hate and hold them to a high standard. And you're 100% correctly. When someone does something well, acknowledge it.
Yes, yes, and acknowledge it without saying in spite of X,
Yes.
Y, Z, or what it has been X, Y, Z.
In
Just say,
spite of
hey,
ruining the thing you created because I didn't like it, it was all right.
yeah,
Yeah, definitely. So are we still on our rating system of trees of life? How many branches on the tree of life do you give this?
I give him an infinite amount of.
For the well, let's go the
It
series. Let's
can't
go
scale.
season. Let's go season 2, and then this episode.
season two as on a whole. I mean, I don't know what's the number of branches. Season two as a whole was phenomenal, or
Yeah,
is phenomenal. I guess if we're still in it, it is phenomenal, and I'm happy that we got it. I'm happy what they presented to us, and I give it all the branches. This episode, we always talk a lot about sticking the landing when it comes to the season finale, series
yes,
finale. This definitely stuck the landing, so it too gets all the branches.
absolutely. I completely agree. This was a 10 out of 10 season, 10 out of 10 second season. And this episode was phenomenal. I couldn't have imagined a better way to, I'm hoping, say goodbye to this character.
You're hoping beyond hope.
I don't, I mean, I want to see him again, but at the same time, I don't, because this was so well done.
I don't want to say unfortunately, but I think we will see him again.
It's definitely it's a bittersweet. It's like, oh sweet, he's back, and it's just one that we knew, and this fully developed character, awesome, he's back, more adventures. But I don't want them to create him to turn him into a multiversal cop out. Oh, let me just let go of this time branch and let it die. Like, I don't want him to essentially become eternity.
Ah, mm-hmm. Got you. But I think we will see him if he is the god of stories. We will see him. We will see him, and it'll be interesting. You know, how does he play in with the rest of what's going on?
Yeah, yeah. I'm so excited though.
Absolutely, 100%.
Absolutely. So, alrighty, guys, thank you so much for joining us for this Loki season 2 roundup. It has been incredible to go through and review our first full start to finish series with all of you. Heard some great things about the podcast from the listeners, and we thank you very much for tuning in.
Yes, thank you.
Only more to come.
Yeah.
We're gonna hit up the Marvels next week. We might go back and do some more in-depth analyses of Ahsoka because we didn't get to touch on that as much. And then there's just going to be some other constant Marvel news, superhero news. We got a trailer for Echo that came out.
So good.
Yes, yes. And so we'll talk about everything. This is by no means the end of you all shutting up and enjoying. You're still going to have to shut up, but you're also going to continue enjoying.
Yeah, we're just pulling all the strands right now. We're pulling them all in and we're holding them. So we are the gods of story.
You're humble gods of stories.
Oh, yes. Thank you very much, everyone, for joining us.
Yes, and we will see you next episode.
Take it easy.